Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 99, recording on Friday, July 25th. Appreciate you guys being here. Guest for you today is Paul Charchian. He of Guillotine Leagues fame, lived in Minnesota for a long time. Big fan of the team behind me. Has a podcast, Fantasy Football Weekly. Have got to know him well. Doing the Friday Football Feast for KFAN. The last few years, and always enjoy chatting football. He thinks about things in depth, and so we got into everything. I started him off with who he thinks is the sneakiest fantasy football pick in the NFL. May or may not be a Vikings player. And then we talked about J.J. McCarthy. We talked about Jeff Okudah. And we got into really a lot of what I've seen through 2 days at training camp. Now I'm talking before Friday's practice, so could have drastic changes afterward, and hopefully not. But if there are those, and we need to do something in the case of emergency, we will make that happen. Enjoy the conversation with Charch. It's always very fun. If you're new here, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. It's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. They've got branches all over the place. Whichever town you live in, I would bet there's a branch there. And then the people who run the thing care about the community. Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, and really everybody in there. Mark Cove, others. Really just love this community. They love this team, and they've been kind enough to participate as we built this podcast, which we do 2 times a week as a supplement to my day job, covering the Vikings for The Athletic. Really excited to be back out here at the TCO Performance Center, doing things day to day. A lot of stories to come next week. Looking forward to you guys seeing those. So yeah, that's the spiel for the 99th episode. We're gonna be back for episode 100. Likely in the middle of the middle of next week. The plans are set. Very excited for what we've got. If you've been around, you know that there's going to be a giveaway where we give two Vikings tickets to the Atlanta Falcons opener. Give a Jersey Mike's gift card and a T-shirt. So going to be fun to see who wins that thing and get to pass those off to a loyal listener. With that, let's hop right into our conversation with Paul Charchian here on the Alec Lewis Show. All right, Charch, thank you a ton for hopping on the show. How are you? How's Utah?
It's warm. It's dry. Take that, Minnesota. This sounds like you guys are suffering through a pretty miserable, moist, dewy summer.
The first day, well, yeah, all summer, I mean, like I move up here from Alabama. These are the Minnesota summers. You go through the winter to get to live and thrive in this summer air. And it has been, I mean, it feels like at times the humidity that I grew up with in Alabama. The first day of practice on Wednesday, we were inside because it was pouring, but it felt like, I mean, it literally felt like you were in a swamp in the Everglades in the indoor facility watching practice. Was not the most fun. I want to start, we're going to talk J.J. McCarthy. We're going to talk, a lot of different things, but I do want to start like broad. You go on shows all the time. You're thinking about fantasy all the time. Like the classic host question is probably, you got one guy you're higher on than everybody else this year. Like where is your lane when you're asked that right now this time of year? Because obviously the people listening to this show are gonna play fantasy, and there's probably not a better person I can, and I need my own advice. So I'm gonna ask you right here.
Well, this goes back to a conversation you and I had in studio back in early March, I want to say. My favorite sleeper for this year, last year was Khalil Shakir, who ended up having a good season, not an amazing season with Buffalo, but a good season, and he was going undrafted in a lot of leagues. My answer this year is a Minnesota Viking. It's Jordan Mason. And, when we talked early May, I was like, I think Jordan Mason is sitting on double-digit touchdowns. I think this team wants to pound the ball at near the stripe. And then I told you a story on air that I'll tell you again here, Alec. At the Vikings draft party, Aaron Jones was nice enough to attend, as he had the year before. And so
Always. He's the best.
He's so good with fans and media. I just, whatever you wish every player was just stamped with the same thing that Aaron Jones has got. And so I just asked him, how much of it is a split backfield? What's the roles going to look like? And he told me short yardage is going to go to Jordan Mason. That's from Aaron Jones. So you don't have to take my word for it. Take Aaron Jones's word for it. We know last year, 13 carries from inside the 5 for Aaron Jones, -2 yards, and only 3 touchdowns on those carries inside the 5. And by letting Jordan Mason, 20 pounds heavier, right, built for inside tough yardage in this new guard center guard combo that the Vikings have got, I think they just want to power people there inside the 5, and it takes some reps off and some pressure off of J.J. McCarthy to make great decisions at the stripe. And so I think this is going to be a big Jordan Mason year. I think this thing's going to be like a 60-40 timeshare, not a 80-20 like a lot of people think. And Mason's is sitting on a really nice season.
That timeshare definitely adds up to me. I'll say a couple things right off of that. It's a great pick. I mean, last year, rushing yards over expected. I believe the only 2 guys he fell behind in that statistic were Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, guys you've probably heard of. And then yards after contact on average, he was exceptional in that category as well. Like when I watch him, and this goes back to last year, the vision is just pretty unbelievable. And then when you see him out here, and I saw it in the spring, but I definitely saw it yesterday, and we're talking Friday, so this was Thursday. I mean, he's just massive. And one of the other writers was talking about him. And I said, compared to Aaron Jones, like he's like a Ford F-250, and Aaron Jones is like the Mercedes S-Class. And that's like both have utility. It's just a matter of like when you need each of them. So I mean, really, it's fascinating to hear that you'd pick a Viking in that category, but I like it, truthfully.
Yeah, I do. And I'll tell you a quick side story. Since I assume we don't have specific time breaks and stuff like that on radio, we can kind of extend this just a little bit. There's a betting channel called VSiN, VSIN, and I've got friends who have hosted a show on it since its inception, like 8 years ago, Mitch and Paulie. So I did their show about 3 weeks ago, and I started talking about Jordan Mason and his odds to be the NFL's rushing touchdown leader.
Wow.
And I made my case similar to the one I just made here, where I think he's going to have double-digit touchdowns. And I reminded them that, and his odds were 400-1. I reminded them that 2 years ago, last year, James Cook went from 2 rushing touchdowns the year before to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns. The year before that, it was Raheem Mostert, Alec. I mean, that's not an everyday name, right? That was the goal line guy on a good offense. Year before that, Jamal Williams in Detroit.
Yeah.
A goal line guy in a good offense. Jordan Mason's going to be a goal line guy in a good offense. So we do this segment. I ramble on about Jordan Mason. In the course of the segment, it went from 400-1 down to 80-1. That many people were betting Jordan Mason to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns.
Well, if anything, that shows your proclivity to be able to move these lines. Like, let me ask you this very, there's no way to actually answer this question, but just listen to you. Let's say you got that at 400-1, and this hits, and Jordan Mason has, 12-plus touchdowns. Like, if Jordan Mason has that level of production this season for the Minnesota Vikings, I'm just trying to think myself, what would that mean for where this Viking season would be headed? That would be wild.
Right, it would be wild. And you could say, well, if Jordan Mason has 12 touchdowns, well, that must mean our quarterback's in trouble if Jordan's scoring the touchdowns. But I would see it the other way. That means there's opportunities inside the 5. That means this team is going over the 50 a lot. They're getting into the red zone a lot, and they're getting down near the stripe a lot. And that's, I think if you believe Jordan Mason is sitting on double-digit touchdowns, you also have to buy into the overall efficacy of this Vikings offense with J.J. McCarthy. And I'm optimistic about all of it. So I do think the Vikings are a candidate to be a top 5 total offense, and that's going to be – Jordan Mason's going to be a big part of that.
We talked a couple weeks ago, and we were, going through this very subject, and we went through the J.J. McCarthy conversation, the running back conversation, and I said to you at the time, if they are to run the football more, and if they are to use Jordan Mason, in the red zone the way we're talking about, I said on the radio with you, I don't want people to take that as any referendum on J.J. McCarthy's ability or trajectory. For me, that would be viewing the Vikings strategy in their developmental process with J.J. McCarthy as a smart one. That would be them deploying the infrastructure around him optimally to get him to the place that he will ultimately get to. Like, I think this year, you don't want him dropping back on 1st and 10, on 2nd and 8 all the time. Now, there are going to be those downs and distances, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Those are quarterback downs. That's where he's got to perform. But if they can be, smart and optimal in those other downs, it feels like that's the best way to develop him long term. And I would imagine you would agree with that.
100%. We don't want to, if we're throwing J.J. McCarthy's arm out of socket, something's gone wrong. That's not what we want. You want the development path for your first year starter is efficiency, not volume. We want to put JJ in a spot where he doesn't have to make all the plays on the field. He needs to just make key plays, make first downs, the periodic deep passes downfield. I want to see him throwing 27 passes a game, not 37. Let's just find the things he does really well. Focus on those things that are executable, repeatable for J.J. McCarthy. Efficiency, not very many mistakes, balanced offense. That to me is a win in year one. Where this thing can get high flying is next year. I just don't think that we should be putting the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL in a position where we're asking him to go win a lot of games through sheer volume.
And just as well as I do, if that's the approach that they take, and if they're having success with it, you're gonna get the national, consternation over they're not letting him rip because he's only this, or like that. That's gonna exist. But this is the thing about J.J. McCarthy is he lived that national narrative in college, so it won't be new to him. And if the team is winning, then you can feel good about it. I want to pose this question to you. So I've seen him out here at training camp 2 days. I talked at length about his first day. I haven't talked a ton about his second. You're watching from afar. Like, what would you be curious about for someone who's here watching him every day? What would you want to see? What would you ask? What would you want to know? Toss it at me.
I've got questions for you. Now, the sample size is really small. It's 2 days, right? So, let's keep that in mind, listeners, right? So I'll be asking these questions, Alec. You're going on a small sample size. First thing I want to know is accuracy. Is he making, well, let's start there. Are we delivering accurate passes, and is he able to make reads? Are we going through progressions and then delivering the ball accurately? Those to me are really critical foundational steps for a young quarterback. So let's start on progressions and accuracy.
It's a great place to start. The progressions have been there time and time again where, I'm speaking Thursday specifically. You see him look to the front side, to the left, and then, progress to the middle with a crosser. And you know this offense, Charge, just as well as I do. It is so much about, can you keep your feet and eyes angled one way and then progress over the middle of the field and move your feet and eyes and throw the ball accurately. Now, I just said the word accurately. There have been certain instances where, like yesterday in particular, did he progress a little late? Maybe. And then could he have placed the ball in a totally better spot? Yes. But I would say for the most part, in your standard throws, out routes to the sideline, throws over the field, progressing in rhythm, it's been pretty much there. And so I to start there is probably apt. And through 2 days without pads, everything you'd probably want to see, you've seen.
Great. I'm going to give you 2 more things for J.J. McCarthy that I'd like to look into early in training camp. Is he making the full route tree throws? Are we getting a look at the deep patterns? Are we getting a look at the deep outs? That's probably the hardest throw to make. Are the deep outs, is there mustard on that ball? Is there too much loft on the ball? Is he leading there? Do we see an arm requisite of the full route tree?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the throw that comes to my mind was Thursday, kind of early in the practice. Justin Jefferson's running an outside on the right side of the line of scrimmage, out to the right sideline. And JJ, now there was a pass rush coming at him, which is going to be the case in the season.
Yep.
And JJ, you would like to get it like up and over and into that little bucket, and he kind of sailed Justin. Now, there's all these other elements that I have to be cognizant of in terms of, is he getting rerouted? Is Justin Jefferson getting rerouted? Was the timing like where Kevin O'Connell would want it? But that was a throw where he sailed it, and you're like, that's probably one that has to, he has to be able to convert over time. So I'd say that still remains a work in progress.
All right, last thing for JJ that I'm hoping to get intel on early in the season. The intangibles. Does he look comfortable as a quarterback? Is he talking to the players? Is he taking command of the huddle? It's things that are maybe harder to tell unless you're on the field and in the huddle. But from what you can discern, do you see the intangibles that you need every starting quarterback to have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the area where, and I've heard it framed this way already, but like you almost wonder, had the Vikings signed Daniel Jones back or Sam Darnold, had there been would that have impeded JJ's progress of developing his voice the way that he seems to over the last bunch of months? Would that have impeded the amount of reps he's gotten? I mean, I just, my mind goes to these little flashbulb moments, Charch, when you ask that. Like Thursday walking off the field, he's one of the last people walking off the field with Theo Jackson, a safety, who's been in this building for a long time. Like, that is the type of outreach that has to be organic, that has to be authentic to be able to lead from like a group perspective the way that I know he has in the past and that he wants to. So, I mean, it's in the huddle. Like, you hear offensive linemen in some of my side conversations that I've had, they're like, yeah, there's no, like, the play calls are long, but the conviction, the way he's uttering it, the command at the line of scrimmage, all of that stuff, like, that is not a box that I worry about at all in terms of it needing to be checked. I just think he has this magnetic charisma feel for being a connector and kind of, instilling confidence in a way that you can't really teach. So for me, as you asked those three areas, and I think it's really astute, like where I'm most curious, like as time continues to pass, is mechanically, can he be accurate? Can he layer the ball into windows? And is he progressing, to your point, in rhythm where it's within the timing of the play?
If you're okay switching over to defense, I got a bunch of guys I want to talk to you about.
I mean, look, I wanted this podcast, which I host, to be. I mean, I know you're locked in, so I wanted to hear as much as possible. I told you before we started recording that I wanted to start with Jeff Okudah, but we got sidetracked, and we get to return to this conversation I was looking forward to have 15 minutes in.
All right, well, let's go to Okudah and the secondary in general. So nobody's worried about this pass rush. And I feel like, and if Dallas Turner turns on the heat in year two, I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm not worried about the front seven. Let's talk about the cornerback position specifically. I want to start with Jeff Okudah. You and I were texting earlier in the week about how much playing time Okudah is going to get. And because I'm rightfully nervous about this, and I have some concern, and I know he's getting a lot of first-team reps right now. Okudah's on his fourth team in 4 years. In 44 career games, he's managed 2 turnovers. That's it. Last year, in limited action, because most teams don't want him on the field very much, he fared so poorly that Pro Football Focus ranked him as cornerback 218. There were only 2 other cornerbacks in the league lower than Jeff Okudah. By the way, one was Andrew Booth, which I'll note to Viking fans. That was a big whiff. And then
that was a deep cut.
That hurt. And then the year before that, he was cornerback 194 by Pro Football Focus. So we have reason to be concerned about Okudah. And with Isaiah Rodgers is an outside corner. Okudah is an outside corner. Byron Murphy is flexible. He can go both. He can play slot. He can play left. He can play right. He can do whatever you want. My worry is as soon as we get to nickel, Okudah's on the field. And nickel's a lot in this league. That can be 60, 70% of your snaps. So where do you stand on Jeff Okudah? How much playing time do I need to be nervous about?
Yeah, so I'll just go back in time. I mean, before free agency, Jeff Okudah's name came up in conversations I had with people of like, this would be a guy that we'd be interested in targeting. And so, I mean, this front office and Brian Flores obviously had their eye on him. I mean, it wasn't like something that just surfaced. Should we go get Jeff Okudah? Yeah, let's go. Like, it was something that they had a vision for. And I'll tell you this, I spoke to Jeff Okudah's, someone very close to him, I'll say, in recent days, and they said to me, like, Brian Flores had a very clear plan with this. And so it's felt like from kind of the beginning, they view Jeff Okudah as an athletic, explosive, press, centric, long arm tackler who can play on the short side of the field and just use his athleticism and explosiveness and thrive to a level that he never has in his time in the NFL. Now, obviously, there's a lot of hope built into that projection, into that signing. And what I would tell you is, I mean, he's impressed me watching him out on the field and talking to people. He's impressed them in terms of what he's shown and his aptitude early on. And so I know, I mean, this is one of those where it feels like last year, okay, you signed Blake Cashman, Blake's played, there have been times where it's been really successful, but he's also gotten hurt a lot. Can we rely on him? And then he becomes one of the best surplus value free agent signings of the entire offseason. And so, like, while Jeff Okudah, you can poke holes in it from the outside in a lot of respects. He's navigated injuries and very serious one, like torn Achilles. He's bounced around, and it hasn't really stuck. There's part of me that you look at it and it's like, well, if Brian Flores sees a vision and sees a path, and if he has the aptitude to be able to do it, can you, squint and see him having a year that restores his confidence to a level that it hasn't been in a long time? Now, the question I would ask to you as we're going back and forth here is like, is that too much of a bet? Is that too rosy of a projection for you to feel comfortable with if in week one in Chicago, the nickel grouping is, as you mentioned, Jeff Okudah on the outside, Isaiah Rodgers on the outside, and Byron Murphy Jr. in the inside?
Yes, it is. That, to me, is more Jeff Okudah than I want to see on the field. I think he's going to he's going to be wearing a target on his jersey if he's playing that often. And when I go down the depth chart and look at the rest of the cornerbacks, I just don't know who else it would necessarily be. Mekhi Blackman, he's going to have to make a big jump if it's going to be him. Dwight McGlothern, I think it's going to be Jeff Okudah, and that's going to have to be somebody we're going to have to find some ways to hide on the field based on the play that he's had. Now, I'll say this coaching staff is familiar with him. They've faced Jeff Okudah before. So, maybe they have, maybe in going up against him, they've found parts of his game that they like. We haven't seen it on field yet. So, I have some concern there. Now, I'll flip it over and say this. Isaiah Rodgers is going to turn out to be a revelation.
I agree.
What we have got in Isaiah Rodgers is potentially the best cornerback we've had here since, I don't know how long. Xavier in his heyday.
It's a long time.
I know.
No, Isaiah Rodgers, I mean, and you probably have the numbers with you, but I've been open on this podcast and on the radio here locally and in writing. Like, when you go back and watch just the very short, brief opportunities he got last year in Philadelphia, like, it's physicality on Puka Nacua. He's intercepting Joe Burrow, I believe, down the right sideline in double coverage. And, this is very anecdotal, but when you just watch him out on this practice field, like, he has ball skills. He might be shorter in measurables, but it feels like he plays very, very big. He's versatile. Your comment on the corner, I would say, and you and I have talked a lot about Byron Murphy over the last couple of years, but I really think he's ascended to a level that's just perfect for this defense. But he is one where Isaiah Rodgers is one where I don't really question it. And then we could talk about Okudah, but for me, where that cornerback room, where I start to wonder is exactly where you went. the depth behind them, the Mekhi Blackman, the Dwight McGlothern, the Zamiah Vaughn. You're just asking a ton from those guys in the event of injury, which you and I both know is likely to happen.
Yep. Rodgers, for the people who don't remember his backstory, he was ascending as one of the best young cornerbacks in the league with the Colts, and then got nailed for gambling on games and had to sit out a full year, and he got cut by the Colts outright, which I think was a mistake for the Colts. And then landed with the Eagles last year, played a backup role, and played really, really well. There, to the point that you felt like, you know, he might be right back to the trajectory that he had. And he's still young. He's 27. You mentioned Isaiah Rodgers. He's a little shorter. He's a little slighter of build, but he is very willing to play physical coverage. I'm really optimistic that he can be a player that's ultimately gonna help the Vikings and just be a stabilizing force at corner.
Defensively, is there any other aspect that you're curious about from your seat? Just know, we're 2 days into camp. Is there any other aspect that,
Dallas Turner, right? Dallas Turner. So, we gave up all the equity to get him 2 drafts ago. I don't say barely saw the field, but was used sparingly on the field last year. What are we seeing through a couple of days that would suggest that perhaps, hopefully, he's gotten better? The usage is going to go up more. What are we seeing through a couple of days on Dallas Turner to suggest we're going to get some return on all the draft equity they put into him?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, and he's obviously one of the storylines of this training camp and season. I'd say from a body type, frame perspective, I mean, he looks much bigger than he did last year, and I said this on the podcast, like he was walking next to Jonathan Grenard a couple of days ago, and there wasn't a big body type drop off in a way that it felt like maybe there had been last year. So that's a very good sign. Like, I don't want to make a ton of, lineups and everything right now, but it has felt like in the 7-on-7 drills period, he is like occupying an off the ball linebacker spot out there, which is interesting. And then, in some of the team drills, he's been running kind of as like a second team edge rusher, but I haven't gotten the sense at all whatsoever that we have seen Flores throw anything close to creative groupings that he has been brainstorming throughout the entire offseason. So I still don't feel like I have a good enough feel for how they will integrate him with this first team group the way that they want to. But I mean, again, you're right to bring it up because for the amount of draft capital they gave up to acquire him, he just has to see the field more, and or else there's going to be some very hard questions to ask.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they deploy him this year. It was not just as a designated pass rusher. He was in coverage a fair amount. They used him a lot of different ways, and I'm really anxious to see what they end up doing with him. And he played a lot of special teams as a side note as well. But they used him both sides of the field. They used him left, right. They used him on the end of the defensive line. They used him at the linebacker level. So, in fact, as I'm looking up the stats now, he's lined up in the slot 6 times as a slot defender.
Well,
the versatility for Dallas Turner.
When I talk about those creative groupings, I mean, it will be very interesting. Like, let's say the opposing team is in 12 personnel with two tight ends, and it's heavy. Can you have a thicker, like, off-ball linebacker or even, like, quasi-safety? Like, I know, Brian, Dallas Turner is not a safety body type, but, like, he is rangy. He has the speed and the ball skills to be able to do it. He intercepted the pass in Seattle off Geno Smith. So, I mean, yeah, like, it's easy to dream on the different types of ways that this coordinator in particular will utilize him, and I just don't feel like through 2 days. While Brian Flores is throwing a lot out there, you're seeing walked up to the line of scrimmage. You're seeing billion guys, man coverage looks dropping into 2 high safety looks. I don't get the sense that we've seen the full breadth of Dallas Turner. I want to go to you posed this question to me in one of our texts, and you said, like other than quarterback, who's the player the Vikings can least afford to lose? And I'm going to take Justin Jefferson off the table for this as well, because that's probably not. I mean,
it is the obvious answer. Yes,
right. But beyond those two, I have a thought. I'd be curious how you'd answer that question.
I might go. Oh, this is my own question. It's tempting to say Christian Darrisaw, even though he's hurt, because he could be so instrumental to helping JJ McCarthy by just being as great as he normally is. That said, Justin School's a quality backup, and maybe you wouldn't have to rely on him. The loss of either of our starting safeties would be a real concern after losing Cam Bynum. We don't have the depth there that we've typically had. I'm going to answer my own question with Harrison Smith.
That's interesting. Very interesting. And I would say, you could even probably throw an argument for, if you lose Blake Cashman, who's the signal caller? Do you rely on Ivan Pace, who's playing coverage and middle linebacker? The way I would answer that question, and this may surprise you too, would be Ryan Kelly at center. I mean, in terms of how much might be on his plate pre-snap to keep more of J.J. McCarthy in his plate. And then I also, as part of this question, consider replacement level. Like, if it's not Ryan Kelly, then who is it? And whether it's Michael Juergens or a Blake Brandel who's versatile, I just you're going to have to, at that point, either probably pretty dumb down the offense or overload J.J. McCarthy, which is why the more I have considered, you talked Jordan Mason, that's how we started the podcast. The more I've thought about the most underrated signing of this offseason, there's part of me that wonders if Ryan Kelly and his smarts and how much they can put on his plate at the line of scrimmage has just gone so far under the radar of how critical that's going to be to JJ's development. Am I crazy?
No, listen, I think that's a very savvy answer, honestly, not just because it's your podcast with your name on it, but all the points you made are great. We don't have any other center on roster that can do what Ryan Kelly can do. And you're 100% correct about how important a center is for decoding the defensive looks that are coming their way. It would be a huge loss. It's a great answer. And honestly, if I could do it over again, I might disagree with you on Ryan Kelly. Speaking of guys,
go. Yeah.
Speaking of guys that might miss time, what do we know on Jordan Addison? The potential for him being suspended. When do you think that might come down? How long do you think that might be? And then who do you think fills that Jordan Addison role in games that he could miss?
That was the place I was going, as I was going to ask and frame the question. As a fantasy thinking mind, how would you, where is your mind at with Jordan Addison? Look, I still would not be shocked if he's suspended for the first 3 games. And at that point, I would be pretty surprised if the Vikings didn't do 2 things. I would be surprised if they didn't use more heavy personnel and use 2 tight ends with Josh Oliver and TJ Hockenson. And then I'd be pretty surprised if Jalen Naylor wasn't the receiver opposite Justin Jefferson in those circumstances. And I know externally, I've gotten a ton of questions like, why Jalen Naylor? Why do they love Jalen Naylor as much as this team does? And it's I mean, when you're a play caller in the NFL like Kevin O'Connell, it's so much about risk-reward propositions and who can I rely on and who can't I rely on. And the thing that Jalen Naylor provides more than any other receiver on this roster is the understanding of how to mix in at each receiver position, whether he's playing the X, whether he's playing the Z, whether he's playing the F. He knows the routes he has to run. He's done it in the past. And so Kevin O'Connell can rely on him to do it again. That's not to take anything away from maybe Ty Felton's potential, to take away from Rondale Moore, to take away from Tim Jones or Lucky Jackson or whoever else. That's the 2 ways that I would expect this team to move forward without Jordan Addison. And then it even throws gasoline on the importance of the run game.
Yeah, for no doubt. The attack would have to be much more balanced. If we're going to lose Addison, I want it to be those first 3 weeks. Those are about, if it is going to be 3 games, that's about as easy a stretch of 3 games as this team's going to get. And so I kind of just want to tear the Band-Aid off on this. And if it's going to happen, the NFL can drag its feet so long on these things, Alec. Great. I just want them to just, let's just get this over with, get this behind us, and hope that Jordan Addison doesn't put us in a position like this again and put the team in this position again, and that he's learned from his mistakes.
And I'll say he's had a great offseason, and he's put on weight. Now, is he ever going to be like Mr. Run After the Catch guy? No, but I don't know if I've said this on the podcast or in written form, but one of the areas this offense wants to squeeze more out of the orange is from a run after catch perspective. They averaged 4.9 yards after the catch last year, which was 26th in the NFL. That is an area where if you can just increase that, X amount per catch, you're just, generating more yards and more scoring opportunities. So I'd watch that. Is there anything else for you that's top of mind where you're like, I wonder from somebody who's at Vikings camp every day, standing out in the heat and getting sunburnt, what they're seeing in this area?
God forbid J.J. McCarthy gets hurt or is awful. Sam Howell probably next man up. Now, of course, Sam was the starter in Washington 2 years ago with a coaching staff that would be soon to be fired. And by the way, none of them, basically they're all out of the NFL at this point. It was a bad situation for Sam Howell. And he absorbed 1 million sacks through 1 million interceptions. It was a bad year. Then he went to Seattle last season, back up there. I think he got a smidgen of time here and there, not a lot. And then the Vikings traded to get him and bring him in here as the presumptive backup. What have you seen from Sam Howell? Again, small sample size. What level of confidence do you have if the Vikings had to give Sam Howell a start or maybe more?
Yeah, the first day of training camp was not good. If I'm not mistaken, the first pass, he threw it right to Ivan Pace Jr., would have been in pick 6, was just not phenomenal. And then there was some pre-snap operation that day that wasn't great. Thursday, it was a little better. And I don't want to be too rash in my thought after 2 practices, because I remember last year early, Sam Darnold threw 2 picks in 1 practice. And so I'm sure the sky was falling at the time, and he went and did what he did with the infrastructure that the Vikings have. So I'd say a week from now, you ask me this question, I'll have a much more, pick a side type of thought behind it. But there's no question, I'm watching this spot very closely because there's a reason they wanted to bring back Daniel Jones. There's a reason we've talked about this spot as much as we have with Ryan Tannehills of the world and the Joe Flaccos of the world. It is a massive one when you're spending $350+ million of this roster. And of course, you said this, we don't, nobody wants to see JJ get hurt. Nobody wants to talk about that being possible. But it is in the realm of possibility. And to have insurance, as we saw 2 years ago, it's critical. So it's a spot I'm going to be watching every day that we're out there. And you're smart to ask it, I think.
Well, and hopefully we never have to find out what Sam Howell's really got. But I will say this, the kid, I was optimistic for him 2 years ago when he was starting because of the athleticism. He's got mobility similar to J.J. McCarthy. He's got mobility and some arm strength. And, I think stylistically he's not that far off of J.J. McCarthy. So maybe it'd be okay. All right, my last topic for you, Alec. And we're both very busy people. I think TJ Hockenson could be sitting on a giant year.
Yeah.
So it's the year after the ACL, the year after the ACL, year removed from the comeback. The mobility, the flexibility should all be there. We know that young quarterbacks, first-year starters, oftentimes as they're making the progressions, they get antsy in the pocket, and there's TJ Hockenson right in front of me, 10 yards downfield, bang. Lots of safety valve tight end work from young starting quarterbacks is common. And then the last thing I'll add to this for optimism for Hockenson, J.J. McCarthy was good enough to put Colston Loveland on a first-round trajectory at Michigan. He knows he's proven he can get the ball to his tight end position. So I'm optimistic about TJ Hockenson sitting on a really nice season here. What do you think?
Lest we forget, 2 years ago, TJ Hockenson caught 90 passes for the Minnesota Vikings
Yeah.
defense. And, I mean, we just talked about Jordan Addison. If he misses time, you're going to see a lot of TJ Hockenson. Your point about J.J. McCarthy is correct. I'm not sure if there's a person he's thrown to more in the first 2 days of training camp than TJ Hockenson. And then just talking to TJ the other day, it sounded like, just by the tone of his voice, that he is motivated to prove that he is the guy from 2 years ago, and that can be, I mean, like, does he expect 90 catches? I mean, maybe he expects it, but that would be wild. But I just, it felt like last year just probably didn't go the way he wanted it to go in a lot of respects. And so, yeah, he was the one, after the first day of practice, I put on social media, like, I thought TJ Hockenson looked really good. So I'm with you and bullish on his prospects this year. And he's the type of guy, you know, if I get a call from a buddy from home or someone who's asking, you know, you cover the league, what do you think from a fantasy perspective? He's the guy I mentioned.
Yeah. All right. I love it. You're the best, my man. This has been a ton of fun.
No, it's great. It's always fun to catch up. We'll do it again soon. I'm glad we turned that into, you know, it was like a Friday Football Feast honorary, you tossing me stuff. It's great. It's always fun, Charch. Great to catch up. You said it. We're both busy, but we'll stay in touch and talk soon.
Yeah, I think I will see you. I think I'll see you before too long as well, and I can't wait for that.
Looking forward to it. See you, Charch. That'll do it for episode 99. One more to go until we've hit 100 here on the Alec Lewis Show. I said this a lot, but just really grateful for all of you who have listened and watched on YouTube. And if you're new here, you can hit the subscribe button and all that stuff. But really, it's been so fun to build this thing and communicate directly to this passionate fan base beyond just the writing, which, I mean, those who know me know that's my first love and always will be. But the opportunity to do this a couple of times a week throughout training camp, throughout the season, it's been a blast. And you never know, how many people find it relevant or interesting or worthwhile. So just can't thank those enough who have given us the time, whether you're working out or driving or whatever you're doing, listening to the Alec Lewis Show. It's always fun. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with Charch. The report's always easy with him because he is as locked in as he is, and then appreciative of First Resource Bank for sponsoring the thing for as long as they have as well. A lot more to come. Next week is episode 100. We'll have a special guest. I promise you that. And we will also have the giveaway, which I'm looking forward to. So enjoy the weekend. If you need any Vikings updates, I promise I'll have them in print at The Athletic or online and ink. And then on social media, you can follow me at Alec_Lewis or the podcast channel's Alec Lewis Show, and you can get all your updates there. But that'll do it for episode 99. We will talk to you guys very, very soon.